Well, hey there, senior leader, and welcome to the Talent Sherpa podcast. This is where senior leaders come to rethink how human capital really works. I'm your host, Jackson Lynch, and today I am joined by my co-host, former CHRO with all the scar tissue to prove it, Scott Morris, who today is the founder of Propulsion AI. Now, Scott, I think you know this. Most leadership teams can tell you their strategy, probably their values like we talked about last week, maybe even their EBITDA margin. But if you ask what they believe about talent, you're going to get 9 different answers from 9 different executives. And that's not a philosophy that is drift with a mission statement and nice font. Because I think the truth is every company already has a talent philosophy. It is revealed every decision that you make, every time you make a promotion or a pay call or a hiring trade-off. The question is it consistent or is it made at a manager by manager level? So today we're going to talk through how to make it explicit, usable, and hopefully powerful.
Yeah, man, it's kind of like culture. Like if you don't develop it, it is developing on its own. Before we dive in, just a couple of things. One, we had a bunch of email and contacts from people about the episode we did, How to Survive the CEO Swap. And if people haven't listened to that, I think they should. And, it was interesting to see that episode hit home with a lot of people. We're here to support. And if we can be of value to you or provide you with some outside point of view on a situation that you're facing, drop us a note. We are more than happy to help. As I do every week, a favor. We would love it if you would subscribe to this podcast. Drop us a review on your preferred platform. It's how we grow the pod. It's how we keep this content fresh and shared with senior leaders. And then finally, Jackson, shout out to the sponsor that we're both very excited about, Dripify. If you want to scale outreach without sounding robotic on LinkedIn, Dripify automates follow-ups, keeps your voice authentic. It's perfect for recruiters, for founders, for executives who still believe that relationships drive results. You and I both use it. We have a special link for listeners that we'll put into the show notes. You can check them out at try.dripify.com/talent Sherpa. The slash is important on that one. So Dripify, try.dripify.com/talent Sherpa.
Yeah, we're excited to have them with us on the journey. So Scott, let's talk a little bit about why the talent philosophy matters, because a clear talent philosophy aligns decisions across the business. It defines what your leaders reward, what they tolerate, what they expect. And when everyone is running on the same code, decisions move faster, trust goes up, and you can, as a human capital person, build systems and tools that make everything run better. Now, without one, every manager writes their own version of fairness. Everyone has their own idea about what counts as being a good performer and how we should treat folks. And then HR ends up policing judgment instead of enabling it. High performers, they audit our culture. They look at every decision that we make and say, is this someplace where I can thrive? And with that kind of chaos, they lose faith, and the system quietly ends up rewarding comfort over contributions. One of the things that I have done is working with clients and CHROs and CEOs is I often start them on a talent philosophy. And I have a tool that we use that we're going to walk through today that helps them turn those standards into operational principles. It explains then how you define performance, potential, fairness, growth. It becomes the management spine of the company. And the most important element is it then allows you to navigate the organization in one direction, aligned, and it allows you then to audit your human capital systems to make sure that they're driving against it.
One of the things I really like about the tool that people are going to find at mytalentsherpa.com, by the way, that tool helps you as a human capital leader align your leadership team behind 9 dimensions. And each one of the dimensions forces clarity. I think it's really interesting, Jackson, how the different dimensions start to work together. Can we walk through the tool real quick?
Okay, so I'm gonna blow through this really quickly. I think we're gonna try to put this up on the screen occasionally. That'll also give people the benefit of not having to look at us. But you can tell we're doing this in October. My friend Scott is already getting ready for his Halloween trick or treats. The first one is performance versus potential. So that question that you're asking is, when you're making promotion or investment decisions, do you value proven performance or demonstrated potential? The way the tool works is there are kind of three different segments, and it's not supposed to be too big, too small, just right, Goldilocks. They are supposed to be on a continuum, and you don't always flip right down the middle or whatever. You need to make sure that these options hit with your company. So for performance versus potential, on one side, you can say we believe current measurable results are the best predictor of success, and performance is going to lead every talent decision. Kind of somewhere in the middle of that continuum, we believe measurable performance earns the right to potential, and both guide promotion and investment. And kind of over to the right, option C is we believe growth, capacity, curiosity, and learning agility are as critical as results, especially in fast moving environments. The second area is talent outcomes accountability. And it's really asking the question, who owns talent outcomes? Is it the leaders or is it HR? So on one side, we believe every direct manager is accountable for building, developing, and retaining talent on their team. Kind of somewhere in the middle, it is we believe direct managers, employees, and HR share accountability, with HR kind of giving tools and challenging leaders to ultimately deliver results. And option C is we believe HR has to drive progress through structure and tools and governance that make sure we have high quality, consistent talent decisions. Number three is fairness and differentiation. Do we believe that we should differentiate sharply based on contribution or treat people more uniformly? So on one side, we believe exceptional performance deserves exceptional recognition, development, rewards, and opportunity. In the middle, we believe fairness starts with clear standards, and once those are met, rewards and opportunities scale with impact. And if you look at on the far right, it is we believe equitable treatment and access to opportunity build long-term trust, and so we want to be much more uniform in how we do that. The fourth one is development focus, and it's asking the question, should development emphasize strengths or closing performance gaps? So it's like we believe that we can grow people fastest by amplifying their natural strength and unique capabilities. That's, I would say, the Marcus Buckingham approach. In the middle, you have we believe growth comes from leveraging strengths while addressing the few gaps that limit performance. Kind of over here, we want to be confronting weaknesses that block impact or advancement. And it's a unique way of thinking about how we address development. Question 5 is around talent mobility. Do we prefer the talent comes from within, or do we need to go to the outside? So we're asking the question, do we believe our best talent comes from within? And internal mobility is what drives loyalty and depth. The second question is we believe that we should grow the most talent internally, but we bring in people occasionally. And there are some that believe that external hiring is the primary source because that allows us to scale most quickly. The sixth is performance management. Should performance be driven by management or measurement? So that's really asking the question about whether or not it is results at all cost, or whether kind of how it gets done matters. And I put that in the context of managerial judgment is really around the behaviors that allow us to evaluate performance beyond what numbers show. Number 7 is about investment in talent. It's about how do we invest our discretionary dollars in people. If you have 10 people, you have $10. Does everyone get $1? Or do 2 people get $8 and everyone else gets a quarter? That's the question it's really trying to get to. Accountability for underperformance. That's really asking the question, how quickly do we start acting when performance is off track? Or put differently, how long will you tolerate mediocrity? And then the last one is kind of ramp up expectations. How long should it take for a new hire or an internal mover to reach full performance? And that is like 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years. And the neat thing about all this is every one of those beliefs has trade-offs, Scott, and you can't have them all. And that is why clarity matters more than popularity. And writing things down is really important. So I know I blasted through there. I will put the tool or a link to the tool in the show notes, and we'll have it on mytalentsherpa.com. You can kind of click through and get it direct to you. But think about it this way. If you prioritize performance over potential, you're going to move fast. You might also burn people out. So think about it like Amazon, data driven to the bone, promotions earned by output, not optimism. It scales like a machine, but it also chews through talent that can't sprint forever. On the flip side, If you lead with potential, that's one of the things Google once did. I think JP Elliott had the head of talent development on from Google recently, and it seems like they've shifted a little bit. But the way Google used to do it is just bring on brilliant thinkers. Sometimes they won't actually do anything, but they will still in the long term get you where you need to go. So one builds velocity, the other builds optionality, and you have to pick like where.
Well, you're using company examples. I mean, I think we can do that with who owns talent quality as well. And the issue that I take with that as an ownership aspect. If you think that HR is the one that owns the talent quality, then you get a lot of structure and you get a lot of compliance, and you sometimes lose managerial ownership. Not surprisingly, I mean, that was the GE playbook, right? They had a really strong human capital organization that created beautiful forms and strong processes and leaders waiting in many cases for HR to do some of the hard parts. Now you flip that around and you make managers fully accountable, and you get what I think is fair to say that is Elon Musk's model, which is radical ownership and zero patience for underperformance and HR chasing the wreckage. And while one creates order, the other one creates intensity. And it's not that one is good and one is bad, I think is what you just said a second ago. It's, are you ready to navigate the trade-off as an executive and as an executive team? When you differentiate rewards sharply, you drive output, but you're going to also test your culture's stomach for what can be perceived as some inequity. It isn't inequitable, but might be perceived that way. Salesforce has a really clear top tier ranking system. High achievers win really big at Salesforce, and the rest of them feel it. And it keeps everybody hot and working to perform. Now, you swing that too far the other side toward uniformity, and you get what public sector agencies often have. And unfortunately, that's where mediocrity kind of becomes policy. Fairness or performance, you can't optimize for both at once.
Yeah, let me double click on a couple of things. I actually worked with someone who worked for Elon, and I asked him what it was like once, and he said terrifying, because if you are doing your job, he will ask questions in the first 30 seconds where you will ultimately prove whether you know your stuff. I don't want to use the Oldsmobile horn today for that one. But if in that 30 seconds you don't show that you know your stuff, you could literally be out the door that phone call. And he was in one of the functions that had to clean up some of that mess. So he didn't really enjoy it as much. I think he enjoyed working with us better. And then you think about all of our rewards pieces and just kind of double clicking on that one. Salesforce has a pay for performance system where the better you achieve, the bigger your rewards.
Yeah.
I'm gonna poke holes in what HR does historically, because what I think we have is a very, very uniform process where you have, on average, small to moderate differentiation. And just because we allocate it in a merit process, we call that pay for performance. And I moved into a company where we literally didn't have annual increases for roughly half the organization so that we could give more money to the folks that were driving the outsized results. Or in a talent density world, we had a separate entire merit plan for the people in those pivotal roles. And we were very open and transparent about that. So like you kind of play in that space, and we have got to figure out what we want to be. And then we align our systems against that, and life works just so much better. What do you think?
Well, I think it's worth making the point again. The audience is a lot smarter than I am, at least, but to ensure that we drive the point home, the choices inherently aren't good or bad in and of themselves. The trade-offs are what are really important. And whatever you pick, and I think what people probably can't conceptualize about the tool is when you finish with the tool, you wind up with these 9 we believe statements. And as a result of that, now managers, particularly executives, have a very concrete version of what the talent philosophy is, but HR and HR leadership now can build systems around those. And so if you say, hey, look, we are going to ensure super high differentiation in performance bonuses for people who are just coming to work and doing their job, and for people who are really driving results in the business. Now, that becomes a part of the talent philosophy, but then what we can do as HR leaders, we can build systems around that. And one system that you have to have, if that is your choice, you have to have results that are declared up front. You can't run performance management by judgment. You've got to have systems that actually identify the results. So it's not a choice between good and bad. It's, this is our choice. Now we're going to build around it. And that's what makes the system really practical.
I think it was about 16 and a half minutes before we talked about outcomes, which, by the way, you can get a tool to help you with that at getpropulsion.ai.
Love this as an episode of commercials for us because we never talk about our stuff.
So let's maybe move forward and talk about some of the trade-offs regarding development or strengths, right? If you focus in on strengths versus opportunities, you'll build specialists who dominate in narrow lanes. And there are places where that makes sense. So think about Apple's industrial design teams. They are world class. But if you've talked to anyone who's worked in that environment, you would hear that they are allergic to cross-functional communication and comfort of any kind. And if you focus on closing weaknesses, you'll produce very versatile generalists, but who aren't necessarily great at any one thing. Think about Procter & Gamble, very strong utility players, not tons of superstars outside of the marketing group. Or if you think about it within most of our companies, if you are developing a frontline leadership training, like that is almost always focused on closing fundamental gaps or teaching process. It's not about building on the strength. And so you would love to say, I want to build strength, but most of the things we do as kind of default mode are in building closing weaknesses. So that the trade-off that you have is really between excellence and adaptability. The other one just to click on is choosing internal mobility first or going out to the external market and buying talent. And if you build from within, like that builds deep loyalty and institutional knowledge. So it's maybe gone down a little bit over the years, but think about Southwest Airlines back in the day is 100% promote from within. It's culture over credentials. Or you can go back to that same time period and go very external heavy like Netflix, and where you have fresh DNA that gets injected into the system. There's a cost, and that cost is stability. One gives you belonging, the other gives you reinvention. And as you think about in the individual company you happen to be working for, if you are in a fast growing, hyperscaling organization, and you want to build from within, boy, I think you're going to have a really hard time. Or you're going to have to so overinvest in your ability to grow talent quickly that it's not going to work. And yet, what I have seen in my coaching clients over the last decade is they will step into a company that's hyperscaling, and they will build, and sometimes we're asked for building a set of processes and systems that deliver grow from within talent. And what you find is you have a time horizon mismatch. I don't know. Have you seen anything like that?
I mean, you see it all over all over the place. And the fact that we can, but between us, continue to rattle off different companies who in their own right are very successful at what they're doing, but they're picking very different approaches to how they deal with their talent. And I think that's really the point that we're trying to make, is that it's the trade-offs that you choose to manage and then the systems that you build around it. And let me go back to performance management for just a second. There's two extreme ways that you manage performance in an organization. You allow everybody to apply their judgment, or you say, here's a very strict rubric that relates to the generation of results that we're going to use. Go to one side of that and you get kind of Wall Street, very successful firms on Wall Street, ruthless precision, right? Not a lot based on context, very numbers based. You go to the other side of that and you use more judgment and you get kind of, I don't know, Hollywood, I guess, brilliant narratives and maybe more fuzzy metrics and maybe a lot of politics in it too, right? So one isn't necessarily bad. They both work. The question is, what are the trade-offs that you're going to navigate? One of the places that I think you see that a lot is underperformance and what you choose to do when people are not performing. If you want to address it fast, we talked Elon a second ago, right? Look at SpaceX. Results first, feelings later. And that's the side that they go to, and they've built systems around that. If you go toward the other side of that spectrum, you get a company like maybe Unilever, where it's more about building trust. You tolerate a little drag to do that. You coach people along, very coaching centric there. Both are philosophies, both have consequences. Neither one is good nor bad. It's a question of the trade offs that you're going to engage in. And I'll do you a third one.
Yeah.
And I had a CEO that I worked for who had done actually a version of the Navy's BUDS course, the SEAL course for executives, and look at ramp up expectations. How quickly are we expecting people to come like to full productivity? Right? Tesla expects full contribution in 30 days or you're gone. The Navy trains nuclear engineers for years before they even touch a reactor, right? Both models work, and they both work because they match the risk profile for the mission of that organization. Point isn't to find the right answers. It's to make consistent choices and to build solid systems around the choices that the executive team has coalesced around. Trade-offs are the price of that. And I think, again, and I know you feel this way too, clarity beats comfort every time. The act of being clear delivers a lot.
Yeah. So let me talk a little bit about how you use the talent philosophy builder. Lots of different ways to go down this path, but the one that I've found most successful is you bring your executive team together. You give them a piece of paper. You ask them to circle the one that they think is the one that fits them, and then you share what everyone thinks. And invariably, what you'll find is there are people who are not thinking about it the way you thought they were thinking about it. That is a feature, not a bug. You go through the argument and alignment process, and when you are done, you should have the ability to disagree, but now you're aligned and now you're supporting. And you ask them those questions, right? Where if we live this belief every day, what would it look like? And who would we promote? And who would we let go? And what behavior would reward? You're looking for the hesitancy and maybe even the hypocrisy that comes with, are we living those things? And when you're done, like you have everything on one single page, 9 statements. You can then start working and wordsmith them a little bit. Hopefully, not in a way that makes it any less clear. It's really important. And then you have a choice. Do you share that broadly? And it is how, in fact, you move forward. But even if you don't share it broadly, I think you got to operationalize it and use it in hiring, use it in performance calibration, leadership development. Like you got to train your managers on how to make choices that reflect the beliefs. And then you review it every year, like a financial plan, because I think that's really important because your business will change over time.
Well, not only the business changes, but the executive appetite changes for those trade-offs. And I think you're raising an important point, which is you're not done when you're done with the exercise. It's got to become a living document. You've got to build it into hiring. You've got to build it into performance systems. And I like this term that you use all the time. As an HR leader, you've got to audit. You've got to audit the decisions. You've got to watch what's going on, individual level and group level, and really then ask, are we applying the philosophy the way that we had said we were going to apply it? And if not, that's a whole new set of conversations, both individual and group.
Yeah, and one of the things I've seen people do similar. Let me step back. Similar to the conversation we had last week with Ann Mellinger at Bink, where we talked about values being posters versus operationalizing them, and we said the moment of tension, that moment of truth, is when what we want runs smack dab into what is, and then what do you do? I think the same thing holds true here. And again, that I think that's a feature, not a bug. And so you kind of look at the people that you let go over the last quarter, and did you follow the principles that you had? You look at the folks that you are promoting. Is it following the principles that you laid out in your set of we believe statements? And you got to have some social contract with your executive team as well of how do we want to collectively address it when one of us or members of our team decide to do something different. Like, I'm sure you have great examples, great ideas. I have great ideas, but every business has to reach whatever that is all by themselves. So at the end of the day, how do you know you're being successful? I think it is when every leader can finish the sentence, we believe, in the same way. And when you've done that, you have turned your philosophy into an operational cadence and into discipline. And that's really all you're looking for here. It doesn't have to be right. It does have to be consistent.
Well, and that consistency is so important. To quickly double click on that before we wrap up, Jackson. Culture is an ingrained understanding of how you're expected to behave. When you think about all of these things, if you are successful in defining your talent philosophy and then successful in building systems that help you execute around that, you are saying to every person, you can have confidence. This is how we do things. That's culture. And that's why the talent philosophy is such an important part of it.
I think that's right. And you probably would wonder, we're about the 27-minute mark. What normally happens at this time? And it is, in fact, your talent Sherpa summary. Or as Scott always says, a good talent philosophy is like espresso. It's strong, it's bold, and it occasionally makes you sweat. So, Scott, what's the summary?
I've literally never said that.
Which is all what right. Makes it fun.
Summary time. Jackson, every company already runs the talent philosophy, whether you have defined it or not. Most haven't written it down. Most are at the individual management level. 2, clarity. Clarity creates speed, it creates consistency, and it creates trust in people decisions. 3rd, the 9 decisions are effectively an executive alignment checklist. Everybody may see them differently coming in. The goal is to get them to coalesce around one version coming out. And 4th, trade-offs are unavoidable. They're it. And alignment is where you win. Agreements about how you're going to navigate the difficult waters when things come into conflict. Have the fight once or have it in every single decision that you make. It's an open choice for you. Better to do it up front.
Yeah, one way is easier for HR folks and better for the business. As they said in Indiana Jones, choose wisely. So, look, I think today's big idea is a company's talent philosophy is the invisible hand that steers every people decision. Those who get promoted, those who get protected, and those who get exited. So the smartest leaders make their beliefs explicit because in talent, clarity is the ultimate competitive advantage. So I want to say thank you so much for tuning into the Talent Sherpa podcast, where senior leaders come to rethink how human capital really works. Scott and I talk about this all the time. It is so much fun to be doing this with all of you. And I want to give a quick shout out to everyone in Sydney, Australia, which is now our single largest listening audience in any one city. Thank you for listening and leading the climb down under. And I will also note, Australia is the second largest country that listens to our podcast, but it is now tied for second with Germany, which is blowing my mind. So I just want to say thanks to everyone internationally who's listening to the pod.
To that point, if you liked today's episode, do us a favor and hit the subscribe button right now while you're thinking about it. Put a like on this particular episode. Leave us a review on your favorite platform, whether that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube. We are ubiquitous across all of those 3.
Yeah, and we do also know that roughly 1 out of 10 of you that listen actually subscribe. So I'm talking to you. Could you please help? It'll be really good for us, and we'll get this information out to more people. And if you're a CHRO wondering where to start your AI journey, don't forget to check out Propulsion AI. That's it. They very cleverly titled getpropulsion.ai. And they are building AI teammates so that human capital leaders can really focus in on what moves the business.
You know, the tool that we talked about today is one of many that you're going to find over at mytalentsherpa.com. And so if you want to define and own the talent philosophy in your own company, head over to www.mytalentsherpa.com, download the full talent philosophy builder, and you can grab a handful of other tools. You can subscribe to the Talent Sherpa, the best-selling, by the way, Talent Sherpa Substack as well at that same address.
That's right, Scott. And thank you for joining me today. And thanks to everybody who's listening. Until next time, keep raising the bar, keep clarifying what you believe, and keep on climbing.